Just 48 hours after being escorted from the office in humiliation, she sat across from the executive board of her former company's biggest rival. The conference room gleamed with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a stark contrast to the cramped exit interview room where HR had coldly informed her she wasn't a fit. As she reached for the Mont Blanc pen to sign her new contract, a fierce determination blazed in her eyes. This wouldn't just be a comeback, this would be revenge, served with surgical precision. My name is Claire Donovan, and until 9:15 on that soul-crushing Monday morning, I believed hard work and excellence would always be enough. 32 years old, 5 years at Helix Dynamics, countless nights debugging code and refining data models. All of it meant nothing when HR's cold voice cut through the sterile conference room air. Claire, we've called you here to discuss your position with the company. Jennifer from HR didn't even look up from her tablet. Beside her, my manager Brad drummed his fingers on the mahogany table, avoiding eye contact like I was already a ghost. After careful evaluation, we've determined you're not a fit for Helix's evolving culture. Not a fit. Those 3 words echoed in my skull as the rest of their corporate doublespeak washed over me. Something about restructuring, strategic realignment, the usual bullshit they feed you while twisting the knife. I sat there, paralyzed, watching Jennifer slide the severance package across the table with her manicured nails clicking against the paper. You have 15 minutes to clear your desk. Security will escort you. The walk back to my cubicle felt like a perp walk. Every head turned, some with pity, others with that sick fascination people have for public executions. Sarah from accounting mouthed, "I'm sorry," but quickly looked away. Tom, who I'd trained just 6 months ago, was already eyeing my monitor setup. My hands trembled as I dumped 5 years into a cardboard box, the Data Wizard mug from last year's Secret Santa, the stress ball shaped like a server. Photos from the product launch where I'd pulled 3 all-nighters to fix critical bugs that would have tanked the entire release. Where was that dedication reflected in their evaluation? The security guard, barely 25 and avoiding eye contact, hovered behind me like I might steal state secrets. Maybe I should have. God knows I'd authored half the algorithms they were still using. "Ma'am, we need to keep moving," he mumbled when I paused at my desk drawer. The elevator ride down 23 floors stretched into eternity. Each floor that ticked by felt like another year of my life wasted. The guard walked me through the lobby, the same lobby where I'd rushed in early every morning, coffee in hand, eager to tackle the day's challenges. The revolving door spit me out onto Madison Avenue, where normal people were living their normal Monday mornings, oblivious to the fact that my entire world had just imploded. I stood there on the sidewalk, holding that pathetic box, watching through the glass as the guard turned and disappeared back into the building. 5 years. 5 fucking years of skipped vacations, canceled dates, and just one more revision at 2 a.m. The previous Friday, Brad had praised my analysis in the quarterly meeting. Claire's insights on user behavior patterns could revolutionize our targeting algorithms, he'd said. 48 hours later, I wasn't a fit. The truth was uglier, and we all knew it. The boys' club had decided I asked too many questions in meetings, pushed back too hard when their pet projects ignored basic data integrity, refused to smile and nod when Kyle, the VP's nephew, presented my work as his own. The Uber driver who picked me up didn't ask why a professional woman was leaving the financial district with a cardboard box at 9:45 on a Monday morning. He'd probably seen enough of us, the discarded, the not-quite-fits, the ones who thought merit mattered more than golf handicaps and bourbon preferences. As Manhattan blurred past the window, my phone buzzed with notifications. LinkedIn connections messaging with fake concern, probably already calculating how to poach my projects. I turned it off. The humiliation was suffocating, a physical weight crushing my chest. But beneath it, something else was stirring. Something sharp and dangerous. They thought they could discard me like obsolete code. They had no idea what they'd just set in motion. The apartment felt like a mausoleum when I pushed open the door. Every surface seemed to mock me, the desk where I'd worked late into countless nights. The coffee maker programmed to start at 5:30 a.m. for my early meetings. The wall calendar still marked with project deadlines that no longer mattered. I dropped the box on the kitchen counter and watched my life scatter across the granite. The severance papers stared back at me. 2 months' pay and continued health insurance for 90 days. They'd calculated my worth down to the penny, like pricing out damaged inventory. The wine bottle opened easier than it should have for a Monday afternoon. By the third glass, the shock had morphed into something rawer, more visceral. Rage, pure, undiluted rage that made my hands shake as I scrolled through my bank statements. Rent, $3,200. Student loans, $890. Credit card minimums from all those work dinners I'd expensed but hadn't been reimbursed for, $450. The math was brutal and unforgiving. My phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail, unable to stomach explaining my failure to the woman who'd bragged about her daughter, the data analyst, to everyone at her book club. Instead, I opened my laptop and did what I always did when my world tilted off its axis. I analyzed. I pulled up every email, every Slack message, every performance review from the last year. The pattern emerged like a tumor on an X-ray, malignant and obvious once you knew where to look. It started 8 months ago when I'd flagged serious issues with the McKenna project, Brad's baby. The data models were fundamentally flawed, built on assumptions that would crumble under real-world conditions. I'd presented my findings with surgical precision, 23 slides of irrefutable evidence. Brad had smiled, thanked me for my passion, and proceeded to launch anyway. When it failed spectacularly, costing Helix a 7-figure client, somehow the narrative became about my negative attitude and inability to support team initiatives. Never mind that I had the email chain proving I'd tried to prevent the disaster. Then there was the promotion that went to Kyle. 26 years old, 3 months at the company. Couldn't write a SQL query if his trust fund depended on it, but he played poker with Brad every Thursday and had that easy, casual misogyny that made him one of the guys. When I'd asked HR about the promotion criteria, Jennifer had suggested I focus on being more collaborative. Like when I'd collaborated my way through building the entire data infrastructure for the Phoenix product launch while Kyle took client calls from his Hamptons share house. The memories kept flooding back, each one another twist of the knife. The all-hands meeting where Brad had introduced my predictive modeling system as the team's achievement, carefully omitting that I'd built it alone over 6 weekends. The client dinner where I'd been asked to take notes while junior male analysts pitched ideas. The performance review that dinged me for lack of executive presence the same week I'd saved the company from a catastrophic data breach. My laptop screen blurred. I realized I was crying, ugly, angry tears that splattered on the keyboard. 5 years of grinding myself down, reshaping myself to fit their mold. And it still wasn't enough. I was never going to be enough because I didn't have the right chromosomes, the right country club membership, the right laugh at their stupid fucking jokes. I stood up too fast, wine and fury making me dizzy, and caught my reflection in the dark window. Pale, hollow-eyed, still wearing the conservative black dress I thought made me look executive. I looked like a ghost of myself, haunting my own life. Fuck them, I said to my reflection, then louder, fuck them. The words echoed in the empty apartment, and something shifted inside me. The humiliation was still there, but it had crystallized into something harder, sharper. They thought they'd broken me, sent me shuffling off to quietly disappear into the vast pool of displaced tech workers. They were wrong. I sat back down at my laptop and began a different kind of analysis. Every contact I'd made, every piece of insider knowledge I possessed, every weakness in Helix's armor that I'd politely ignored while being a good soldier. The data was all there. Patterns and vulnerabilities they didn't even know existed because they'd never bothered to look past their own arrogance. I poured another glass of wine and raised it to the glowing screen. You want to see what not a fit looks like? I'll show you exactly what you threw away. The storm inside me had found its direction, north, straight through the heart of everything they'd built. Wednesday morning, 10:47 a.m., 48 hours since my unceremonious exit. I was halfway through stress eating a pint of Ben & Jerry's and updating my LinkedIn profile when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Claire Donovan? The voice was crisp, professional, female. Speaking. This is Patricia Huang, Head of Talent Acquisition at Titan Core Technologies. Do you have a moment? Titan Core, Helix's biggest rival. The company Brad trash-talked in every all-hands meeting, calling them unimaginative copycats while obsessively tracking their market share. My spoon froze midway to my mouth. I'm listening. We've been following your work, particularly your behavioral prediction models and the Phoenix launch infrastructure. We're building something revolutionary. And frankly, we need someone with your exact expertise. Would you be available to meet with our executive team tomorrow? My mind raced. This couldn't be coincidence. News of my firing had barely hit the industry gossip mill. How did you know you were available? Patricia's laugh was knowing. Let's say we keep close tabs on exceptional talent being wasted by our competitors. Helix's loss could be Titan's gain. If you're interested. Interested? My heart was hammering so hard I was sure she could hear it through the phone. But I kept my voice steady. I'm open to discussing opportunities. Excellent. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., our headquarters. Ask for me at reception. After she hung up, I sat in stunned silence, melting ice cream dripping onto my laptop. Then the implications hit me like a freight train. Titan wanted me. Not just wanted, they'd been watching, waiting. They'd called within 48 hours of my termination. The initial suspicion crept in. Why me? Why now? I wasn't naive enough to think this was pure coincidence. Corporate espionage was real, and hiring your rival's recently terminated employees was page 1 of the playbook. They wanted inside knowledge, and I had 5 years' worth. But did I care about the ethics of it? I thought about Brad's smug face, Jennifer's cold dismissal, the security guard treating me like a criminal. The moral high ground was a luxury I could no longer afford. I spent the rest of Wednesday researching Titan with the obsessive focus I'd once devoted to Helix projects. They were aggressive, innovative, and according to TechCrunch, about to launch a direct competitor to Helix's flagship product. Their CEO, Diana Morrison, was a former Silicon Valley wunderkind known for both brilliance and ruthlessness. Perfect. Thursday arrived gray and drizzling, pathetic fallacy at its finest. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I'd bought with my signing bonus 5 years ago. Back when I'd believed in corporate fairy tales. The Uber ride to Titan's headquarters felt like crossing into enemy territory. Except the enemy wasn't Titan anymore. Their building was everything Helix's wasn't: modern, glass, flooded with natural light. The receptionist smiled genuinely and offered me espresso while I waited. No security guards hovering, no suspicious glances. Patricia Huang appeared exactly at 2 p.m., elegant and sharp in a way that suggested she could eviscerate you politely in 3 languages. Claire, so glad you could make it. The team is eager to meet you. The executive conference room was intimidating, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that probably cost more than my annual rent. But it was the 3 people waiting inside that made my pulse spike. Diana Morrison herself, silver-haired and intensely focused. Marcus Rodriguez, head of product development, who I recognized from conference keynotes. And David Kim, CTO, whose papers on machine learning I'd studied religiously. Claire! Diana stood, offering her hand. We've been hoping for this opportunity for quite some time. I'm flattered, but also curious about the timing, I said, matching her directness. Diana smiled, a predator recognizing another predator. Let's not insult each other's intelligence. We know Helix let you go Monday morning. We also know it was the stupidest decision Brad Thompson has made in a career full of them. Hearing Brad's name in her mouth was jarring. She knew everything. Marcus leaned forward. We're launching Project Atlas in 6 months. It's aimed directly at Helix's market share. We've been building the team for a year, but we're missing a crucial piece: Someone who understands behavioral analytics at a granular level. Someone who's built these systems from scratch. Someone, David added quietly, who knows exactly where Helix's vulnerabilities lie. There it was, cards on the table. They weren't just hiring my expertise, they were buying my inside knowledge. The ethical thing would be to walk away. The professional thing would be to cite non-compete clauses and confidentiality agreements. Instead, I thought about Monday morning, the humiliation, the dismissal. Not a fit. Tell me about Atlas, I said. Diana's smile widened. It's everything Helix's Phoenix should have been but wasn't, because they didn't listen to you. We've read your internal reports. Claire, the ones Brad buried, you were right about everything. My blood chilled. How did you? We didn't steal them, Patricia clarified quickly. But people talk. Engineers move between companies. Your reputation preceded you long before Monday. They laid out the vision for Atlas. Ambitious, ruthless, and brilliant. Everything I'd suggested at Helix, everything that had been dismissed or stolen or attributed to someone else, here they were offering it back to me on a silver platter, with a side of revenge. Lead analyst position, Diana said finally. Equity stake. Salary 30% above your Helix package. And Claire? She paused for effect. Full autonomy to build your team and execute your vision. The number she slid across the table made my poker face crack. It wasn't just fuck you money. It was destroy you money. I picked up the pen, feeling its weight. When do I start? Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. 1 week after my humiliation at Helix, I walked into Titan Core with a security badge that actually worked and a desk with a window view. The contrast was almost laughable. Marcus Rodriguez was waiting at my workstation with coffee and a genuine smile. Ready to build something that'll make Helix weep? I've been ready since last Monday, I replied, and meant it. The first few days were a blur of onboarding, system access, and meeting my new team. No suspicious glances, no whispered conversations that stopped when I approached. My ideas weren't just heard, they were solicited, challenged constructively, and implemented. When I suggested a complete overhaul of the data pipeline architecture, David Kim himself sat with me for 3 hours, working through the logic, asking intelligent questions that made the solution stronger. This is brilliant, he said. No caveat, no but, no credit stealing, just acknowledgement. It was almost disorienting, being treated like a professional after 5 years of being systematically diminished. But I couldn't afford to get comfortable. I had work to do. Project Atlas was ambitious, an AI-driven platform that would predict consumer behavior patterns with unprecedented accuracy. The exact same concept I'd pitched to Helix 18 months ago, only to watch it die in Brad's inbox. Here, it wasn't just alive, it was thriving, funded, and mine to lead. I threw myself into the work with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. 12-hour days became my norm. But unlike at Helix, every hour felt purposeful. My team, 8 engineers, all sharp, all respectful, actually implemented my specifications instead of quietly undermining them. 3 weeks in, Marcus invited me to the executive strategy meeting. We need your insights on Helix's weaknesses, he said bluntly. Nothing proprietary, nothing that violates your NDA, just strategic observations. I'd been preparing for this moment since signing my contract. Helix's biggest vulnerability isn't technical, I began, pulling up my presentation. It's cultural. They consistently undervalue data integrity in favor of rapid deployment. Brad Thompson's philosophy is ship fast, fix later, which works until it doesn't. Diana leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. The Phoenix platform, their flagship product, has 17 critical vulnerabilities in its predictive algorithm. They're not security flaws, they're logical flaws. Assumptions that only work under ideal conditions. I pulled up a diagram, careful to use only publicly available information and my own analysis. When real-world data deviates more than 15% from their training models, the entire system degrades. They know this. but fixing it would require admitting the original architecture was flawed. Which was Brad's design, Marcus said, understanding dawning on his face. Exactly. They'd rather risk system failures than bruise executive egos. The room was silent for a moment, absorbing the implications. Then Diana spoke. Can Atlas exploit these vulnerabilities? Not exploit, I corrected carefully. But we can build Atlas to excel precisely where Phoenix fails. When their system stumbles, ours will shine. The market will notice. The weeks flew by in a hurricane of code reviews, architecture meetings, and strategic sessions. My confidence, shattered by Helix's rejection, rebuilt itself line by line, decision by decision. When I presented our first prototype to the board, the applause was genuine. When I pushed back on a design decision, my concerns were addressed, not dismissed. Marcus became more than a colleague, he became an ally. Over late-night coding sessions and debugging marathons, he shared his own war stories of corporate politics and glass ceilings. Titan isn't perfect, he admitted one evening as we reviewed test results. But Diana actually gives a damn about talent over politics. It's why she built this place. And why she poached me from Helix. He grinned. That was my recommendation. Actually, I've been following your work since that IEE paper you published 2 years ago. The one Brad presented as team research at the Denver conference. My jaw dropped. You knew about that? Everyone knew, Claire. The industry isn't that big. We were just waiting for Helix to fuck up badly enough that you'd be available. The revelation should have bothered me, being treated like a commodity to be traded between companies. But instead, it felt like vindication. My work had value, even if Helix couldn't see it. 6 weeks into my tenure at Titan, I ran into Sarah from Helix at a Starbucks. Her eyes widened in recognition, then dropped to my Titan badge. Claire, I heard you landed somewhere, but Titan? Wow. How's Helix? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She glanced around nervously. Honestly, chaos. Phoenix is having major issues, and without you there to fix the data problems. She trailed off. Brad's been in crisis mode for weeks. Kyle certainly can't handle it. I sipped my coffee, feeling a dark satisfaction. That's unfortunate. Claire, I'm sorry about what happened. We all knew it was bullshit. Then why didn't anyone say anything? She didn't have an answer. Nobody ever did. As I walked back to Titan's gleaming towers, my phone buzzed with a message from Diana. Atlas demo moved up to next month. Major investors interested. Your moment to shine. I smiled, thinking about Brad and his crisis meetings, scrambling to fix problems I'd warned him about months ago. He thought I wasn't a fit. He had no idea how perfectly I fit into his downfall. 2 months into my role at Titan, everything changed with a single discovery. I was deep in Phoenix's public API documentation, looking for legitimate competitive insights, when I noticed something odd, a pattern in their data handling that seemed familiar. Too familiar. My blood ran cold as I pulled up my old Helix files from my personal backup, the ones I'd legally retained from projects I'd authored. The data structure Phoenix was using wasn't just similar to my original proposal, it was identical. Line for line, variable for variable. They'd implemented my rejected architecture after firing me, probably pulling it from the shared drives after I was gone. But here's where it got interesting. They'd only implemented half of it. The critical error handling protocols I'd designed to prevent cascade failures, missing. The redundancy systems that would catch data anomalies, nowhere to be found. They'd stolen my work, but hadn't understood it enough to implement it correctly. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. This wasn't just about proprietary information, this was about a fundamental flaw that would manifest under specific conditions. Conditions I knew how to create. Marcus found me still at my desk at 11 p.m., surrounded by printouts and diagrams. Claire, you look like you've seen a ghost. Better, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. I've seen an opportunity. I walked him through my discovery, careful to emphasize that everything I'd found was through public channels and my own prior work. Marcus whistled low. They're using your architecture without the safety nets. It's like building a race car with no brakes. Looks fast, performs beautifully, until you need to stop. And you know exactly what would trigger a failure? I met his eyes. High volume, rapid fluctuation data inputs. The kind that happen during, say, a major product launch or marketing campaign. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. This is dangerous territory. Claire, we can't actively sabotage them. We don't have to, I said, pulling up our Atlas roadmap. We just have to be better. When their system fails under pressure, which it will without my safety protocols, Atlas needs to be ready to handle the exact same scenario flawlessly. You're talking about staging a direct comparison. I'm talking about letting them hang themselves with my own rope. The moral implications kept me awake that night. Was it ethical to use knowledge of a flaw I'd inadvertently helped create? But then I remembered Kyle taking credit for my work, Brad dismissing my concerns, Jennifer's cold, not a fit. They'd stolen from me first, my ideas, my dignity, my career trajectory. This was just balanced karma. Over the next week, I worked with obsessive focus on Atlas's stress testing protocols, specifically designing them to excel where Phoenix would fail. Every test scenario was legally defensible, standard industry benchmarks that any responsible platform should handle. If Phoenix couldn't manage them, that was Helix's problem, not mine. Diana called me into her office on Friday afternoon. Marcus briefed me on your discovery, she said without preamble. I need to know you're comfortable with what we're planning. They terminated me for not being a fit, then stolen my work without understanding it, I replied. I'm not sabotaging them. I'm just ensuring Atlas succeeds where Phoenix will inevitably fail. She studied me for a long moment. The tech world is smaller than you think. Claire? This could define your reputation. My reputation was already defined when Helix threw me away. At least now I'm defining it on my terms. Then we proceed. But Claire? She leaned forward. We do this clean. No hacking, no corporate espionage, nothing that would give them legal ammunition. We win by being better, not by playing dirty. Agreed. We don't need to play dirty when they've already sabotaged themselves. That weekend, I pulled every public benchmark report, every stress test standard, every industry metric that Phoenix would be expected to meet. I built a comprehensive testing suite that would push any behavioral prediction platform to its limits, completely above board, entirely professional, and absolutely devastating to any system missing critical error handling. My phone rang Sunday evening. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Helix's headquarters. Claire, it's Tom. From Helix. I know this is weird, but we're having issues with the Phoenix platform. Brad mentioned you'd worked on something similar before you left. Would you consider consulting? No, I cut him off. I'm not available for consulting. Claire, please. It's bad. We're looking at potential data corruption across 3 major clients. Brad said you might. Brad said I wasn't a fit, I interrupted, my voice ice cold. I suggest you find someone who is. Good luck, Tom. I hung up and immediately forwarded the call log to Titan's legal team, documenting that I'd refused to engage. Then I texted Marcus. They're already failing. Phoenix is corrupting client data. His response was immediate. Then we move up the Atlas launch. Time to show the world what competent engineering looks like. I smiled in the darkness of my apartment. They'd wanted me gone, deemed me not suitable for their culture. Now their flagship product was failing with my architecture, incomplete and misunderstood. The irony was delicious, but the revenge would be even sweeter. The Atlas launch was set for March 15th, a Tuesday deliberately chosen to maximize media coverage. Diana had pulled every string, called in every favor, TechCrunch, Wired. The information, they'd all be watching our live demonstration. The week before launch, I barely slept. Every line of code was reviewed, every possible failure point reinforced. My team worked with the focused intensity of people who knew they were about to change everything. Unlike my time at Helix, No one questioned my 18-hour days. They matched them. Claire, you need to see this, Marcus said Monday morning, laptop in hand. He pulled up Helix's investor page. They're announcing a revolutionary Phoenix upgrade the same day as our launch. My stomach dropped, then steadied. They're trying to steal our thunder. Or desperately trying to patch their problems before we expose them, Diana said, joining us. Our sources say they've been in crisis mode for weeks. Brad's been sleeping in the office. The thought of Brad panicking gave me a savage satisfaction. What's our play? We don't change anything, Diana said firmly. Let them rush their patch. Rushed code means more vulnerabilities. Launch day arrived gray and tense. Our venue, a sleek auditorium in downtown San Francisco, was packed. I stood backstage, hands steady despite the magnitude of what we were about to do. This wasn't just a product launch, it was a public execution of Helix's credibility. Marcus introduced me as Titan's lead data architect. No mention of Helix, but everyone knew. The tech world had been buzzing about my move for weeks. As I took the stage, I spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Former colleagues, industry analysts, and there, in the back row, Brad Thompson himself. Our eyes met. He looked haggard, desperate. I smiled. Today, we're going to show you what happens when behavioral prediction meets uncompromising engineering standards, I began, my voice carrying clear and confident. Atlas isn't just an evolution, it's what this technology should have been from the beginning. The live demonstration was flawless. Atlas processed data streams that would have crashed Phoenix. I knew because I'd designed those exact failure points. Real-time analysis of millions of data points, pattern recognition across impossible variables, all while maintaining perfect data integrity. Now, I said, pulling up a comparison chart. Let's see how Atlas performs against industry benchmarks. The numbers were devastating. Atlas outperformed every metric by margins that shouldn't have been possible. But the real knife twist was coming. For transparency, we're also running these same tests on competing platforms. I didn't name Phoenix directly. I didn't have to. Everyone watched as the leading competitor struggled, failed, and eventually crashed when processing the exact same datasets Atlas handled effortlessly. The audit log showed data corruption, cascade failures. Exactly what happened when you implemented my architecture without understanding it. The audience murmured, phones came out. The Twitter feeds were already exploding. Brad had gone pale, frantically typing on his phone, probably calling his emergency response team. But it was too late. The demonstration was being live-streamed to thousands. The difference, I concluded, isn't just technical superiority. It's about respecting the fundamentals of data science. It's about building with integrity, not just speed. It's about having the right fit between vision and execution. I emphasize those last two words, right fit, staring directly at Brad. His face flushed red. He knew. The entire room knew. The Q&A was brutal. For Helix, every question highlighted Phoenix's failures, Atlas's superiority. When asked about my transition from Helix to Titan, I kept it professional. I found a better fit for my skills and vision. The subtext screamed louder than any direct accusation could have. After the presentation, my phone exploded with messages, job offers, consulting requests, interview requests. I ignored them all, watching instead the real-time collapse of Helix's stock price on my phone, down 12% by market close. That evening, Diana opened champagne in the Titan offices. Phoenix is in full meltdown, Marcus reported, reading from his phone. 3 major clients have already announced they're exploring alternatives. To us? I asked. Who else? Diana raised her glass. To Claire, who just gave us the sweetest revenge, success. But the evening's real satisfaction came from a different source. A text from an unknown number that I recognized as Brad's personal cell. You planned this. I typed back, I simply found a better fit. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, we could have worked this out. No, I replied. You decided I wasn't worth keeping. Today, the market decided you were wrong. I blocked the number and went back to celebrating with my team, my real team, who valued competence over politics, results over ego. Through the office windows, San Francisco glittered below, full of possibilities and companies that would now think twice before dismissing someone for not being a fit. The sweetest revenge wasn't destroying them. It was succeeding so completely that their failure became inevitable. A footnote in Atlas's success story. They'd fired me for not fitting their mold. Now their mold was breaking, and I was the one holding the hammer. The annual TechNexus Summit was the industry's most prestigious event. 3 days of keynotes, panels, and networking where Silicon Valley's power players decided the future. This year, I was attending as Titan's representative, wearing a speaker badge for my panel on data integrity in predictive analytics. The bitter irony? Last year, I'd watched from the overflow room as Brad presented my work to this same crowd. The opening mixer was in full swing when I saw him. Richard Keene, Helix's CEO, stood near the bar surrounded by investors who looked distinctly uncomfortable. The past 3 weeks since Atlas's launch had not been kind to him, or Helix. Their stock had dropped 30%, and rumors of emergency board meetings were everywhere. I was examining the wine selection when his reflection appeared in the mirror behind the bar. Claire. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze with perfect composure. Richard. His jaw clenched. Up close, I could see the stress etched into every line of his face. The confident CEO who'd built Helix into a billion-dollar company looked hollowed out. Enjoying the summit? I asked, my tone conversationally neutral. You know exactly what you did, he said, voice low and controlled. But I could hear the fury underneath. The Atlas launch timing, the specific benchmarks you chose, the way I built a superior product, I interrupted calmly. Yes, I'm quite proud of that. His face reddened. You used insider knowledge. You targeted our weaknesses. I used publicly available information and my own expertise, I corrected, taking a sip of wine. If Phoenix couldn't handle industry-standard benchmarks, that's not my problem. You worked on that architecture. Yes, I did. And I proposed the complete version, with all necessary safety protocols. But Brad thought I was too negative, too risk-averse. Remember? I set down my glass. Then you fired me for not being a fit. People were starting to notice our conversation. Phones were discreetly coming out. Richard noticed too, struggling to control himself. We gave you opportunities. You gave me condescension. I cut him off, my voice sharp now. 5 years of my ideas being dismissed, stolen, or attributed to men who couldn't code their way out of a paper bag. You let Brad and his boys' club run roughshod over anyone who dared to point out their incompetence. So this is revenge? No, I said, and meant it. Revenge would have been sending your clients the detailed analysis of Phoenix's vulnerabilities I documented while still at Helix. Revenge would have been the tell-all Medium post about your toxic culture that 3 journalists have begged me to write. This? I gestured around the room full of industry power players. This is just business. Richard's hands clenched. We could sue. Try it. Diana Morrison's voice came from behind me. She stepped beside me, every inch the powerful CEO. Our legal team would love discovery. I'm sure Claire's discrimination claims would make fascinating reading. Richard's face went from red to white. He knew, as I did, that discovery would reveal every dismissed complaint, every promoted incompetent nephew, every qualified woman pushed out for culture fit. You destroyed a good company, he said to me, desperation creeping into his voice. No, I replied steadily. I built a better one. You destroyed yourselves the day you decided I wasn't worth keeping. The crowd around us had grown. Everyone was listening while pretending not to. Richard looked around, realizing he was outnumbered in enemy territory. Many of these people had already jumped ship to Atlas or were considering it. The Phoenix patch, he started, won't fix the fundamental architecture flaws. I said quietly. We both know that. You can't patch what's broken at the foundation. I tried to tell Brad that 18 months ago. For a moment, his CEO mask slipped, and I saw the man who'd built Helix from nothing. We could have, if you'd just... What? Waited patiently while Kyle took credit for my work, smiled while Brad explained my own ideas back to me in meetings, accepted 70 cents on the dollar because I don't golf at the right clubs. My voice was calm, but each word hit like a hammer. You had 5 years to value what I brought. You chose not to. Marcus appeared at my elbow. Claire, the panel's about to start. I nodded, then looked back at Richard one last time. I wasn't a fit for Helix. Thank you for making that clear. It freed me to find where I actually belong. As I walked away, I heard him call out, "This isn't over." I turned back, smiled. Yes, Richard, it is. It was over the moment you let Brad escort me out with a security guard like a criminal instead of the person who built half your infrastructure. The crowd parted as Diana and I walked toward the conference hall. Behind us, Richard stood alone at the bar, the former king of a crumbling kingdom, finally understanding the true cost of dismissing someone as not a fit. The panel moderator introduced me as the architect behind Atlas's revolutionary approach. The applause was thunderous. From the stage, I could see Richard leaving through the back door, shoulders slumped in defeat. I'd won. Not through sabotage or corporate espionage, but by being excellent at exactly the things they'd said I wasn't suited for. The sweetest revenge of all. 6 months after the TechNexus confrontation, I stood in my new corner office at Titan, watching the sunset paint San Francisco gold. The city sparkled below, indifferent to the corporate dramas playing out in its towers. On my desk, the latest issue of Forbes sat open to a feature article, "The Phoenix That Couldn't Rise Inside Helix's Fall from Grace." Brad Thompson had been quietly let go 3 months ago. Kyle lasted another week before pursuing other opportunities. Richard Keene announced his retirement last Tuesday, citing a desire to spend time with family. Corporate speak for complete defeat. Meanwhile, Atlas had captured 40% of Helix's former market share. 3 of their largest clients had migrated to our platform. The 4th was in negotiations with Marcus right now, 3 floors down. My phone buzzed. Diana, texting from the board meeting. Unanimous approval, congratulations, VP of Data Architecture. Vice President. At 33, I was the youngest VP in Titan's history. More importantly, I was the architect of the product that had reshaped the entire industry. The not-a-fit reject who'd become the standard everyone else was measured against. Sarah from Helix had reached out last week, asking if we had openings. I'd hired her, she was talented, just trapped in the wrong environment. Tom, too, had joined our team. Good people fleeing a sinking ship I'd helped torpedo, now building something better from the wreckage. But tonight wasn't about gloating. The office was quiet, most people gone home to their Friday evening plans. I walked to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass, remembering another evening 6 months ago when I'd stood in my apartment, hollow and humiliated, wondering if my career was over. The journey from that moment to this felt surreal. Not just the success I'd always known I was capable of, but the validation. Every algorithm that ran flawlessly, every client who chose Atlas, every industry award we collected was a small redemption for those 5 years of being diminished. Marcus knocked, entering with 2 glasses and a bottle of exceptional whiskey. Thought we should toast your promotion properly. How's the client meeting going? I asked, accepting the glass. They're signing. Phoenix failed them during Black Friday. Corrupted 3 million customer profiles. He shook his head. If they'd just implemented your complete architecture. But they didn't. Because I wasn't a fit. We drank in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker to life. Then Marcus said, "You know what the ironic part is? Richard was right about one thing. You weren't a fit for Helix." I looked at him sharply. But he was smiling. You were never meant for a company that small-minded. Helix could never have contained what you're capable of. They did you a favor, Claire. They set you free to destroy them. I considered that, rolling the whiskey in my glass. I didn't set out to destroy them. No. You set out to build something better. Their destruction was just collateral damage. My phone rang. An unknown number. But I recognized the pattern. Another recruiter. Probably. Or a journalist wanting the inside story. I let it go to voicemail. That story, the real story, would never be told. Not fully. The world could speculate about corporate rivalry and aggressive competition. They'd never know about the personal devastation of being told you don't belong, or the cold satisfaction of proving definitively that you do. Later that evening, I walked through the financial district toward the Montgomery Street BART station. The same walk I'd taken countless times from Helix, but everything felt different now. My reflection in the building windows showed someone transformed, not just the expensive suit or the confident posture, but something fundamental. I'd been forged in the fire of their rejection and emerged as something harder, sharper, more powerful than they'd ever imagined. As I passed Helix's building, now with a for lease sign on 2 floors, a memory surfaced. Jennifer from HR, sliding that severance package across the table, telling me I wasn't a fit. I wondered if she still worked there, in the hollowed-out remains of what had once been Silicon Valley's darling. The BART platform was crowded with Friday evening commuters. A young woman next to me was crying quietly into her phone. Something about being let go, not being strategic enough. I recognized the devastation in her voice, the confusion and hurt I'd felt 6 months ago. It gets better, I told her when she hung up. Sometimes being rejected is just redirection. She looked at me, mascara smudged, probably thinking I was just another tech bro with empty platitudes. I handed her my business card. When you're ready, send me your resume. We're always looking for people who didn't fit somewhere else. The train arrived, sweeping us into its fluorescent embrace. As we rattled through the tunnel under the bay, I closed my eyes and let myself feel the full weight of the journey, from humiliation to vindication, from rejection to revenge, from not fitting to setting the standard. My phone buzzed one last time. Diana. Check the news. I pulled up TechCrunch. The headline made me smile. Helix Dynamics announces acquisition by private equity firm at 70% below peak valuation. They'd been sold for parts, the corporate equivalent of total defeat. I wasn't just a fit anymore. I was the mold they'd failed to match. And in the gleaming towers of San Francisco, in the servers humming with Atlas's algorithms, in the careers I was now building for other misfits, my revenge was complete. Not with anger or sabotage, but with excellence they couldn't deny and success they couldn't match. In this game of corporate chess, I hadn't just taken their king, I'd rebuilt the entire board. The train emerged from the tunnel into the Oakland evening, somewhere behind me. Helix's sign would soon come down. Ahead, the future waited, bright with possibility and vindication. I'd won, and everyone knew it. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate revenge and redemption. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If Claire's journey resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced a similar situation where being rejected turned into your greatest opportunity? I read every comment and would love to hear your story. Until next time, remember, sometimes not fitting in is exactly where your power begins.